Macbeth. Act 1. A war ends. New battles commence. A storm was raging across the heath as three witches gathered around the warmth of their bubbling cauldron. "We need to find Macbeth," said one. "Yes, but where?" asked the another. "After the battles are over," announced the third. "That's when we will meet him." The wind lashed their hair, and lightning cracked in the sky as the witches fled. Scotland was at war. At this battle camp, King Duncan met his sons Malcolm and Donalbain and other officers from the Scottish army. An exhausted captain approached the group. "Perhaps this weary soldier will have news for us," the king said. "MacDonald has shown no mercy in his fighting," the injured captain reported. MacDonald had been the Thane of Cawdor, but had turned traitor and joined forces with the Norwegian army to invade Scotland. The king shuddered. "But we stood firm," the captain continued. "And thanks to Macbeth's bravery, we have defeated our enemy." "This is excellent news," exclaimed the king. "Now go and see the camp doctor about your wounds." Moments later, Ross, another officer, arrived at camp. "Macbeth is on his way back to camp with Officer Banquo," Ross announced. "Go and meet him," the king commanded. "Congratulate him on his battle honors. After MacDonald has been executed, Macbeth will take his place as the Thane of Cawdor." The storm was still raging when the witches gathered. "Listen," hissed one. "I can hear the battle drum." "Macbeth is coming," crackled the another. "Hail to the hero, Macbeth," said the third witch as Macbeth and Banquo came near. Macbeth gazed in fear at the sisters as they appeared out of the mist. "You shall be the Thane of Cawdor, sir," said the first witch. "And then you shall be the King of Scotland," said the second. "And Banquo's children will also be kings," crackled the third. "Who are you?" demanded Macbeth. "And what are you talking about?" Just as they appeared out of nowhere, the witches disappeared without answering. Cool mist swirled around Macbeth and Banquo. "What was all that about?" Macbeth asked. "No idea," said Banquo. Suddenly, the two dark shapes emerged from the mist after meeting the witches. Macbeth and Banquo were pleased to see Ross and his fellow officer Angus. "The king is delighted to hear the news of your victory," Ross said, shaking Macbeth's hand. He wants to honor you by naming you the Thane of Cawdor. Macbeth felt a tingle go down his spine. What was happening? The first of the witch's predictions had just come true. But there is already a Thane of Cawdor, Macbeth said. Angus shook his head. Not for much longer. The king is having MacDonald executed for treason. Macbeth stood silently, then turned to Banquo. Perhaps those witches knew what they were talking about, he said quietly. Maybe your children grow up to be kings. Who knows? Banquo replied. But I do know I want to get back to camp. Come on. After trudging wearily through the mud and the rain, Macbeth and Banquo finally arrived back at Duncan's camp. Welcome back, King Duncan said. We all owe you a great deal of thanks for your courage. You too, Banquo. Macbeth shook his head. I was only doing my duty, sir. But to show his gratitude, Duncan made Macbeth the Thane of Cawdor, just as Ross and the witches had said he would. And in honor of his own son's heroism, Duncan made Malcolm the new Prince of Cumberland. Now that this war is over, Duncan declared, I should like to visit you at your home in Inverness, Macbeth. That way we can affirm our friendship. My wife and I will be honored, Macbeth said. Please excuse me, sir. I must write to tell her and to tell her all my news. She will want to get everything arranged for your visit. Duncan smiled as he watched Macbeth walk away. Turning to his officers, he said, Macbeth is a truly modest and courageous man. We would all do well to follow his example. Come on, let's celebrate our victory. Back in Inverness, in the Scottish Highlands, Lady Macbeth sat alone in her room reading her husband's letter. Thane of Cawdor was a great honor. Now they would finally be rich and powerful. But she knew her husband was too kind. He would let others take advantage of him. As the Thane of Cawdor, he should be exploiting them, especially if the witch's predictions were to come true. Lady Macbeth had to take control. She decided to do everything in her power to make sure Macbeth would become king. Lady Macbeth read more of her husband's letter. The king himself wanted to visit them. She was just thinking of the parties she would host for the king when she was interrupted. A messenger had arrived at the house. The king will be here tonight, he announced. Tonight? Lady Macbeth said. Then I better Hurry up and get organized. Out of the window, Lady Macbeth saw a raven settle on the castle battlements. When she blinked to look at it more closely, the omen of death had vanished. Lady Macbeth was getting her house ready for the king's visit when Macbeth came home. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "I always knew that one day you would get power we deserve. But I'm not sure the witches were right about me becoming king," Macbeth said. "The witches would not have said it unless they had seen how great you could be as king," Lady Macbeth shouted. How typical of her husband to be so pathetic, she thought. They can see into the future. They know you have to kill King Duncan. Then you can become king, just as the witches said. But does Duncan deserve to be killed so that I can rule? Macbeth asked. Perhaps I would be better working alongside him as the Thane of Cawdor. That's enough, Macbeth, his wife persisted. Who cares about Duncan? Think about what you could achieve if you were king. Listen, she said, I have all worked out. We will ply the king's men with food and drink, and after the king has eaten, he will fall asleep. That's when you pounce. You will kill him, and when his body is discovered, it will look as if his own men killed him in their drunken state. Macbeth was worried. It seems wrong, after all the good things that Duncan has done for me. End of Macbeth, Act 1.